Hello everyone, Bizork here. It's been a while since I've dropped in to say hello, and I do have a lot to say. This video will be split into two parts. In the first part, I'm going to talk about where me and Liv have been for the past couple of years, really, and also what the status of Saucers.Space is, as well as the game engine that we're working on that will run Saucers.Space once it's complete. And in the second part of the video, which will be a separate video that I'll release tomorrow, I'll talk about the technical, architectural challenges and considerations for that game engine and for the game in general, both past, present, and future. And that'll be a really interesting video to watch, so keep an eye out for that. It'll come out tomorrow. Okay, before I get into things, I just want to contextualize everything with a brief history of where I come from and kind of what happened before Saucers.Space even started. It's important to understand the past in order to see where we are now. I used to run this company that we were building like barcode scanners to scan produce without any barcode, so it would just use image recognition. And we had a really hard time selling that to big businesses. Frankly, they didn't trust us because we were too small. Basically, a couple guys working out of our kitchens, really. And so anyway, that's kind of the background I came from. And around 2017, that kind of wound down a little bit, and we decided to break it off. And then I started taking on these contract projects like web development and stuff. And anyway, I really didn't like that. I didn't like doing web development for paying customers because they expect you to work for free a lot of the time, and it was very stressful for me to have to deal with this all the time. And I kind of wanted to do my own thing. I still had that entrepreneurial spirit, and so Liv and I decided that hey, we could potentially build some video games. And I always wanted to build some games, so I made some videos, I think early 2018 or so, where I was talking about, we were thinking about doing a Christmas themed game, and that took too long to do, like the models and stuff, and we didn't have any background in, first of all, sound effect creation, but also computer graphics was an area, 3D modeling specifically, was an area that we were kind of new in. And so that kind of took a really long time, and in the time that we were trying to learn those skills, I decided, maybe I'll just build a space shooter, because at the time I was playing a lot of Gats.io, which I really liked, and I always wanted to build a space shooter, so, and I knew how to do it, so I'm like, okay, it's mostly programming based, right, less so graphics. So I'm like, I could build a game like this, and I think I would enjoy it, so we started working on Saucers.Space. And we had a prototype for Saucers.Space done in about a week, where 2 players or more could log into a server and shoot at each other. And then anyone who followed the progression of that game knows where we went from there. We rapidly built this thing out in 2018, and by the end of summer in 2018, we had essentially launched our beta version of the game. Which was pretty buggy, to be honest, but it was the accumulation of many months worth of work. In fact, it was a lot of work. It was I was working 80-hour work weeks, and during that whole time period, we weren't making any income because I stopped doing the contract work in order to work on the game development. It wasn't like, it sounds crazier than it really was. This is something I've always wanted to do, and I've been thinking about game development for a long time. It wasn't just a spur of the moment thing. It was something that we agreed to, and something I've always wanted to do. And it was just a matter of picking the right project. So we built out this game, and I think we did a pretty good job for the timeline that we were on. And then around the end of summer, things started slowing down a little bit. The development got a lot more trickier, and I was working the same number of hours, but less was getting done. And to put it into perspective, when I first built the first wave of ships, I think I had the whole wave done within 2 weeks. When I built the next ship, the 7th ship, which I think was the tracker. That thing took like a whole month to build, and it might not seem too obvious why that happened. But what happened was we were working on this game so hard, and trying to build new features that we ended up accumulating a lot of what's known as technical debt, and the development itself became increasingly troublesome. Basically, every time a new feature was added, there were increasingly more and more bugs that would appear, and there were certain parts of the code base that were extremely complicated. And working on a project for like 6 months straight, you end up with tens of thousands of lines of code, and it was just way too complicated. And then around September, I didn't tell too many people this, but we were running out of money, and it kind of snuck up on us, right? I had savings, so I had a little bit of security, and I knew that I had skills. I could go get a job anytime. That's fine, not a problem. Particularly contract work, and the reason for the contract work is because I needed to finish my degree in order to get a corporate job, because I took a leave of absence from my degree to start a business. So that added a little bit of complication, and I was running out of money, and then we were planning on for a while to do a Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter was $3,000 Canadian, and the point of that, even though we were strapped for cash, the point actually was not to raise money. We were already paying. Okay, $3,000 is like 2 months' rent at the time. And the amount of money I was losing by not taking on employment contracts was already like $100,000. So the opportunity cost was already so much higher than the Kickstarter. But we launched this Kickstarter with the hopes of basically promoting the game, and the plan was that we were moving out from our apartment as well, because they wanted to raise our rent, and we thought it was unacceptable, so we started searching for a place. And we were so busy with the Kickstarter, and game development and everything, and we searched for a place to live, but we had like not enough time. There were no vacancies anywhere that we could find, just like 0% vacancies in almost every place we found. So basically at the end of our Kickstarter, we got kicked out of our place. Actually, we wanted to move out because they were raising our rent, but we had to move out. It was already, the wheels had already been turning, and we didn't have any place to go, so we were basically homeless. And it was so crazy that like the day that we had to move out, we had to call in family, and none of our stuff was packed into boxes because of how much work we put into the Kickstarter. Ideally, I wanted to get like past the beta launch, in anticipation for the end of the Kickstarter, and at least like wave 2. And I was working really hard on that, and like I said, the technical debt just made that an insurmountable goal, and then on top of that, it was just like a lot of stress. So we ended up basically being forced to move back in with parents, which was not a pleasant experience for me, at least. And it was a very hard time. It was a very, very hard time. So I decided to borrow some money from friends, and I paid off the rest of my student debt so I could go back take the damn course I needed to take to graduate. I graduated, I got my ring, and then I applied for a job, and I got the first job I applied for, and I went and I worked. And that was around January I started work, and it was good. You know, I saved up a bit, and I got back on my feet a little bit, and I restored a little bit of my dignity. And I got fired after 4 months because I asked for a raise, and these guys fired me for asking for a raise. So I don't really care. I worked throughout the summer, and so after I got fired, I came back and I did a major update for Saucers.Space because I had free time and I wanted to build up my portfolio a little bit, and just that even though I was only working for 4 months, I saved up enough to get back on my feet a little bit. And so then near the end of summer, I applied for another job, and I got a job in kind of a weird industry. It's like medical imaging, but I'm a full stack developer doing medical imaging stuff now. And yeah, it's very different to work on game development when you're working full time, and it's hard to find the time because before I was working 80-hour work weeks, and now I work 40+ hour work weeks at work, and I come home after a commute, and I'm it's there's not a lot of time left to work, first of all, and there's no downtime, so it's really tricky. It's hard to it's just really hard to find the time to do updates for the game. Luckily, around November, we were able to get our own place back, and so that's where I am. I'm living in a new apartment, and we've been living here for a while. Now, after the coronavirus lockdowns, we got back into game development a little bit, and that's when I appeared on Discord for a bit, and I started showing some screenshots of some stuff that we've been working on, and I built like a new game type. It was a reverse take game type for Saucers.Space, and we were hoping to release that. And what I did was I kind of went back to the drawing board, and I planned out kind of where we're going to go development wise with the game, and I decided, of course I could have released the new game type and did an update, but there were some kind of major inconsistencies with the way that objects were being loaded and destroyed on both the server and the client version of the game, and it was just ridiculous, and it was getting out of hand. And I had kind of two paths I could take. One was I could continue down the path of building more and more technical debts to meet some arbitrary deadlines, or I could take a step back and fix the underlying problems and build the game properly so that it's a proper game that people can play. And I decided to do what I think is the right thing. I took the time to build the game properly, and I've rewritten the game now twice. The first rewrite, I rewrote everything in JavaScript, and I organized everything properly, so I got rid of all the technical debt, and that's when I did that major release in summer of 2019. And then since then, I've been rewriting the game a second time, and I'm rewriting the whole thing in TypeScript now. And I'm gonna do a whole video on this as my part 2 of this video. And in this version of the game, it's gonna fix basically all the bugs that are known, and it's gonna add a whole bunch of new features, and it's gonna completely consolidate the client and server of the game, and abstract a lot of the things that were causing a lot of technical debt before. It's also gonna be significantly more performant, and allow many more players to play simultaneously, and have a lot of other just kind of technical advantages. If you're interested in that, check out part 2 of this video, and I'll go into depth on those new features in terms of at least the technical architecture of the game. But just to give you an overview of what that entails, the goal for us is to release not just a game, but we want to build a game engine, and eventually even a physics engine. And I have an open source physics engine project I'm working on, but I want to build a physics engine that compiles to a WebAssembly, because it would be freaking crazy performant. And that's a huge can of worms. So I'm not going to prioritize that right now. We have a physics engine that kind of works, but I want to build a game engine. And then the idea is, once the game engine is built, we're talking about a powerful, versatile multiplayer game engine that I can use to spin up a game over the weekend, and then deploy that game to multiple servers all over the world, and then have people playing with each other. That's the goal for the game engine we've been building. So it's more than just one game. I'm still trying to follow my dream of doing game development, and we will. We're gonna do it. Last month we put our game engine to the test, kind of for the first time since I've been working on it. And we tried building a new game from scratch at a game jam, and we had one weekend to build a game. And because I had work, it turned into basically one day worth of time to build this game. And so we built this game in one night, and the game engine was built for 2D games, obviously, because the game engine is being abstracted from Saucers.Space, which is a 2D space shooter. And we ended up building a 3D puzzle game. And we built this in one night with the game engine. We just tweaked it to support 3D. So it's pretty powerful, and the game wasn't worth releasing at this point or anything. But the long-term goals for us is we want to build this engine out, and then we can publish games, all kinds of different games. And then the really long-term goals past all of the web games that we're working on is I'd eventually like to get into VR-based games, because I think that there's a growing market for VR, and I think it's going to blow up soon. Actually, it already has blown up. There's a lot of money to be made building, good games in VR. But step one is we're still working out this web-based game engine, and it's going to be an amazing thing when it comes out. And we're going to have not just Saucers.Space, but other games as well. Last thing I just want to say is I never took the opportunity to thank everybody who invested in our Kickstarter. Like I said, it wasn't really about the money, but for you guys it was, because you invested, and that takes, it takes some courage, and it takes some risk tolerance to do that. And, every single person who made that investment in us, who believed in our project enough to put down money and invest in our Kickstarter, that occupies a big space in my heart, and I have not forgotten about you. We are still working on the game. It's not an abandoned project. It's just, I'm one developer, and it's been a hard couple of years. So thanks for watching, and keep an eye out for the second video, part 2. I'll talk about the technicals, which will be very interesting to a lot of people. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.